The Honourable Leader of the official New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to table pages 6 and 7 from a recent edition of the Cape Breton Post, which on two facing pages includes no less than 5 either official notices or news stories about the closing of emergency centres, like this. And down in one corner, an official notice of 3 closings of the Glace Bay Emergency Centre room, and next to that, 2 news stories about the Glace Bay closing, about the one in New Waterford. Next to that, a news story about the closing in Badek, and next to that, an official notice of 3 closings taking place on the north side. And so I want to ask the Premier, Mr. Speaker, now in the 5th year since his government has come to office, is this the best that his government has to offer to the people of Cape Breton?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question and continue to work with Doctors Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, very proud of the work we've been able to do recently. We attracted 100 new doctors in the province last year. Mr. Speaker, we know there's more work to do, continue to do. Fact of the matter is, for successive governments, they ignored the fact that the demographics are changing. They ignored the fact, Mr. Speaker, there was not a physician recruitment plan across the province. We continue to make those investments. We're going to continue to make sure that every Nova Scotian has access to primary health care, Mr. Speaker, which would include a doctor.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The annual accountability report on emergency departments makes very clear that the trajectory of emergency room closures since this government began has been like this: up, 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 and up. And so I want to ask the Premier, does the Premier acknowledge the fact, or does he dodge or divert or obscure it, that emergency room closures have got worse every year since he came to power?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, again, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. Mr. Speaker, again, I want to thank those healthcare professionals across the province who are continuing to work with our government to ensure that we have in place the appropriate infrastructure to provide the healthcare services that people want. I'm very proud of the expansion we're doing at the QE2, the redevelopment here, the fact that we're going to have collaborative care centres across the province. We have in our budget an investment to make that happen. We're going to continue to work with a team of healthcare providers to deliver healthcare service to Nova Scotia. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to grow the economy. We've been able to keep more young people in the province of Nova Scotia. More Nova Scotians are feeling optimistic about their future in this province, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue to deal with the challenges that have been ignored by successive governments. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, promoting this province globally.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party on his final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the 4 years before this government came to power, the trajectory of emergency room closures in Nova Scotia was like this: down, 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 down. And the reason for this, Mr. Speaker, was the development of collaborative emergency centres, which turned the corner on rural emergency room closures in Nova Scotia in communities from Tatamagouche to Musquodoboit Harbour. And so I want to ask the Premier, what is the justification he has to offer for the fact that in the budget which is presently before this House, there's not one Liberal loonie put towards collaborative emergency centres?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, again, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. Mr. Speaker, in his diagrams, he forgot to acknowledge that in those 4 years there was an exodus of young people out of our province, Mr. Speaker. He forgot to, in his demonstration, to explain what happened to the economy of the province of Nova Scotia under that watch. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is, quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member spent many loonies he didn't have when he was in power, and our government has put this province on a good fiscal track. We're going to continue to move this province forward, Mr. Speaker. Not only are we a leader in the Federation, Mr. Speaker, but the global community is looking to invest in this province, and we're going to continue to work with them to make it happen.